Hello YouTube, I am here to discuss another season of Total Drama, and this time it is Total Drama All-Stars. What should have been the biggest season of them all has infamously become the most hated of them all. Is it my least favorite season? It never has been before, but this rewatch, I don't know, I might have to reconsider. This season follows Total Drama Revenge of the Island, which I said I have always felt is the worst season. But I think part of that is because in All Stars, even if it's probably a worse season, or on par at least, it at least has the characters that I love in it. So do I value seeing those characters more than I value seeing them painted in a bad light? I don't know. So let's just hop right into the season, and I think the first thing I have to discuss is the cast overall. It's an all-star season, and this is the lineup we have. I think there were a few people who just weren't here, who should have been here. First one that comes to mind is Lashana. Where is she? This season absolutely needed Lashana on the heroes team. It needed somebody who would spice things up a little bit, and she would probably be a good force to keep the OG cast together, I think. Owen did have a cameo in this season, but he wasn't on the season proper, and honestly, I am fine with that. I've had my fix of Owen. I think he could have made for a good early boot, but he is somebody who you would consider an all-star. Izzy, she also appeared in this season, but she wasn't on the cast proper. I absolutely think she should have been on the cast proper. She could have added some chaos to the villains team. Now, of the people who are on the cast, I definitely think at least one cast member absolutely had no business being on an all-star season, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows who that is. I know there's been talk of other contestants not really deserving their spot, but I was fine with everybody else being on an all-star season. I never really questioned it for anybody besides one person. A big sign of the season kind of being a mess was also the fact that they had an equal number of cast members from Revenge of the Island and the original seasons. It should not be that way at all. I think even if we're doing that, I would have Alejandro and Sierra take Revenge of the Island numbers. Whatever. I just don't get it. I don't get that decision at all. You should definitely give the classics a bit more room. And there are more classic cast members than there are Revenge of the Island cast members. It was a weird choice. So yeah, calling this season All-Stars, I think, was a mistake to begin with. They could have called it Heroes versus Villains, or I would have called it like Clash of the Eras or something. Just right off the bat, I should also just say 13 episodes for an all-star season is absurd. They needed a full season. Just putting that out there. I don't need to dwell on that. So I do think in some ways the season was set up to fail from the start, but with a concept so good, it should not have gone as bad as it did. I'll jump right into the cast members individually, and of course, I have to start with Chris McLean. The season opens with him being let out of jail to come host the season. Chris has fully gone off the rails. I said it before, I'll say it again. I think how Chris is usually a good indicator of how the season is. And I would say Chris's storyline here has jumped the shark, but he still has the charm he always has had, and he still gets some good laughs out of me throughout the season. But it's just like, wow, this is a lot. Now, Chef, on the other hand, I think Chef wasn't too relevant this season, but he's had some nice moments. His presence was appreciated. I feel like he is one of the few characters who probably got out of All Stars unscathed. Now, to move on to the contestants. First, we have Ezekiel. Oh wait, just thrown out of the plane. Oh my god, that was so nasty, but it got a good laugh out of me. Now, Ezekiel, he was present this season. He was in the 100th episode as a menace. And it's like, okay. Okay. This is what we've reduced Ezekiel to. Got it. But Chris is really petty, just bringing him back for a gag. Like, oh my gosh. It was so stupid, but it got a laugh out of me. I have to say, I laughed. So I'll go in elimination order again, and our first boot was Lindsay. I thought Lindsay was absolutely needed for this season. She's iconic. She did not last very long, as we can tell. Lindsay was very dumbed down on this appearance. It was a shame to see, but I'll always enjoy Lindsay's presence in any way, shape, or form, so I did still get a good laugh out of it. It was sad to see her not be fully utilized, but I get it. Every season needs a first boot. It's a shame that Lindsay was the first boot. I would have liked to see her make a deeper run into the season, but whatever. It was very, 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 very stupid to have Lindsay Red X herself. But I laughed. I laughed. I'm sorry. It was funny to me. It was sad, but it was funny. I'm glad Lindsay got up out of here before things really went downhill. So, good for you, Lindsay. You kind of made it out of this season pretty unscathed. It's still not her best outing, but hey, whatever. Next boot was Lightning, and I think this was a very appropriate outing for Lightning. I think he was pretty consistent between both seasons, and this is about what I'd expect from Lightning on a season full of actual competitors. That's all I really got to say. I don't think he was mistreated much. I think this was very appropriate. And third boot was Joe, and this is where I start to have problems with this season, because Joe, in these first 3 episodes, she had this feud with Heather that was carrying the villains team. It was very entertaining watching these two go head to head. Like, this is the stuff you want to see in an all-star season. These clashes between the two eras, these two forces really going head to head. But we end it in episode 3. Joe gets the boot in episode 3. They should have dragged this out for the full pre-merge. I wanted to see this rivalry more and more. It was so good. But whatever, let's just take it out. Episode 3. This could have been like a big storyline for the whole season. Wasted potential. I guess this was a good outing for Joe because it left me wanting more, and I still feel very positively about her character. So, good on you, Joe. You're still cool. The next boot was Sam, and of course, this is the person who I don't think belonged on this season at all. What are you doing here? The last person I wanted to see. Like, if we're gonna get a guy from Revenge of the Island, get Rick. Get somebody else. Nobody was begging for Sam to come back, but I guess if they don't have Harold on this season, they needed to fill their nerd spot. I don't even like Harold, but Harold probably would have been more fitting. I would have loved to see Harold get the first boot. Yeah, I just couldn't really get past the fact that he doesn't belong here, and he never proved his worth on this season. He had a pretty embarrassing exit. Bye. I hope to never see Sam again. Go back to Dakotazoid. I didn't need to be reminded about that plot. The next contestant eliminated was Heather. Oh my gosh. Losing Heather this early into the season is tragic because Heather is very fun to watch. She really made the most of the episodes she had, particularly in the night episode where she pretends that she's gone nice to trick Alejandro. It was nice to see her still not buying anything Alejandro is selling. In her elimination episode, Heather finds the hidden immunity idol and she hides it, and Alejandro finds it. Heather gets everybody to vote out Alejandro. Alejandro idols Heather out. Really? I don't want to see Alejandro get the best of Heather. And to have it go down in such a stupid fashion was pretty insulting to Heather's intelligence. Seriously, Heather's smarter than this. Heather's a lot smarter than this. This is the woman who everybody on the show feared. I think if Heather's idol went missing, she would be smart enough not to go after Alejandro. Or she'd at least suspect Alejandro did something. But she just immediately went to Chris. Why would Chris take the idol from you? That's the how, like, it didn't, the logic was not logical. After Heather's arc in World Tour, I still view her as the hero and Alejandro as the villain. So to have Alejandro get the best of Heather, it's not very satisfying. It's a bit anticlimactic. It just really feels like they had to dumb Heather down for this to happen. And then she comes back in the finale and she's all lovey-dovey for Alejandro. It's sad to see Heather reduced to a coupling. But then she knocks out of it when she has a chance to go after the million again. And that kind of reels me back in. But it's still just like, really, this is what we're doing with Heather. Like, her and Alejandro have an interesting dynamic, but I just don't think Heather was treated with much respect this season. I would have liked to see her make a deeper run. I would have liked to see her get Joe. They can have Alejandro outlast Heather, just not in this fashion. They can have Alejandro get one over on Heather. I think him revealing that he could walk is enough. I just don't like how Heather was treated here. Heather's an icon, always will be, but it's just, this is how we do Heather. Tragic. Our next boot was Sierra, and I know some people don't think Sierra belonged on this season. I absolutely think she did belong on this season. Seeing Sierra without Cody is something I was very excited for as a kid when this season was coming out, because Sierra just has so much potential. I thought she was such a fun character. I really like how her arc wrapped up at the end of World Tour, where her and Cody got like on good terms. To see Sierra come in this season and have an obsessive spiral over Cody, it was very disappointing because there's so much more to do. I think it would be very interesting to see Sierra still miss Cody, but be able to exist on her own and use her super fan powers for good. Like, they could have had Sierra sniff out Mal, because I'm sure she knew that Mal was a thing. How wouldn't she? This is Sierra. She knows everything about all of these people. How could she not use that to her advantage in an all-star season? Like, wasted potential. Instead, we have Sierra smuggling in her phone, completely obsessing over Cody still. Her phone gets broken by Mal, and she starts to imagine Cameron as Cody. Codykins, all those names. It was weird, but I can't sit here and lie. It was also funny, and I was very entertained by Sierra. I'm very drawn to Sierra's energy. I think she demands attention. I'm never bored when Sierra's on screen. So I appreciate her. I like to watch Sierra, even if this plotline is not what I wanted for her at all. It got some laughs at me. Like, I'm sorry, it did. I can't lie and say I didn't get some laughs out of it. It was very absurd. Extremely absurd, along with a lot of the stuff this season. But I kind of enjoyed it. Just a little bit. I kind of did. I also didn't. I think it was very insulting to Cody and Cameron and the arc Sierra had. But once I take a deep breath and realize, okay, we're just destroying everybody on this season and take it for what it is, I had some laughs. Like, I'm sorry. I did. Take me out back. Like, I'm sorry. I thought it was a little funny, and it gave me some entertainment in a season that really stressed me out. But yeah, this is not what I wanted at all for Sierra, and it's disappointing. It was nice to see Sierra be such a competitor, though. She is so good at challenges. Sierra's a force to be reckoned with. And now we reached the merge, and the first merge boot was Duncan, who wasn't eliminated properly. He got taken out of the competition by Chris because he blew up Chris's mansion. So Duncan came into this season still coupled up with Gwen. Gwen dumped him. Thank goodness. What an awful couple. Ugh. But Duncan had this arc of being on the villain team, and then he gets swapped to the heroes team, and everybody keeps calling him this good guy, and he hates it. I think this was a very fitting arc for Duncan. He does have a kind heart, and that's always been something that's shown throughout the show. Like in the first season when he saved that bunny. So putting a spotlight on that was an interesting choice. Of course, I'll always view Duncan as a villain for what he did to Courtney. But it was interesting to see him kind of deal with not wanting to be perceived as a hero. I don't like how he treated Courtney here. He was still clearly obsessed with her. He's not over her. He's never been over her. Gwen didn't stand a chance. And I thought it was interesting at the merge when he tries to go to Courtney and Gwen and be like, let's align. Like, really, Duncan? Really? You're insane. I would have been interested to see how that worked, though, if he lasted a little longer into the merge, but this wasn't his season. We already know Duncan's trash, so just get him out of there and let Gwen and Courtney hash out their stuff. Like, I've seen all I need to see of Duncan. And then they had this intrigue of him knowing who Mal is. Nothing came from it. Wasted opportunity. Really. This is all we're doing. Okay.
Okay.
I was not sad to see Duncan go, but I don't think he was handled the best. His arc was a little interesting, but the Mal stuff, just nothing came from it. Why'd we include it if nothing was going to come from it? Like, Duncan, you're useless. You are useless, Duncan. You didn't get this out sooner. Done. The next boot was Cameron, who should have been booted twice by now. But, okay.
Okay.
He doesn't even get voted out this time. He has to be polled medically. And 2 boots in a row where the person's not voted out. Okay.
Okay.
That's a little lame, especially for the merge. I liked Cameron a lot in Revenge of the Island. Coming out of All-Stars, I lost all interest in Cameron as a character. I think a lot of it was seeing the Cameron, Mike, Zoe trio dominate so much screen time at the expense of a lot of these other characters was exhausting. Really, really exhausting. I guess they wanted them to be like the main 3 from Revenge of the Island and Courtney, Gwen, Duncan to be the main 3 from the classic seasons. Like, I get that. But then the classic seasons getting slashed at the end and Revenge of the Island getting all the focus in the end makes me fault this Revenge of the Island trio for a lot of the flaws of the season. And of course, Cameron's roped into that. But also, like, come on. Do they really need that much focus? They're the new people. Cameron just looked like a fool for going along with all this Mal stuff. I guess he was trying to be helpful and trust his friend, but it's just like, you're supposed to be the smart guy, but you're acting stupid. I did feel bad for Cameron at first when Sierra was all up on him. Like, he didn't deserve that. But Cameron was swapped from the hero team to the villain team, and we got to see a bit of an arc for Cameron where he's got villainous tendencies now. I think that was very interesting. I wish they did a little more with that. But no, they still had Cameron acting morally superior in a lot of ways. I think there was a compelling arc here for Cameron, but it just wasn't fully realized in the amount of episodes we had here. But then the moment that really loses me with Cameron is when Mal tells him to kiss Courtney and he does it. She didn't consent to that. It just totally gave me the ick about Cameron, and I just could never look at him the same way ever again. Like, fresh out of Revenge of the Island, the first airing, I was very, very, very Team Cameron. Like, that was probably my favorite character coming out of that season. But then All Stars aired and that kiss happened, and even as a kid, I was like, oh, no, don't do that. And I just never been able to get over that with Cameron. Like, And we just kind of rushed over it too. Like, no, you kissed her without consent. And that was very gross. So I was glad to see him leave that same episode, and I just like never really wanted to see him again after that. It's just so gross. And for Mal to rig the votes against Cameron and Cameron not to catch Alma, it's like, you're not as smart as you were originally. They like really dumbed him down. Any character who survives 2 boots when they were supposed to leave both times, it's not gonna go over well, I don't think. But it really is a shame to see Cameron's fall from grace. I think he's one of the characters who got hit the hardest in All Stars. The next boot was Alejandro. I already touched on him a little bit with Heather. I'm very disappointed how that played out. I don't want to see Alejandro get ahead on Heather because I don't like Alejandro. Alejandro is always going to be very villainous to me. But I think this season makes you side with Alejandro a little bit more because he's the lesser of 2 evils now in this scenario with Mal. But I don't think anything compelling happened with Alejandro to justify him outlasting Heather. He didn't do much, and it was very unfortunate. He didn't win over Mal at the end. I was very happy to see Courtney get to vote Alejandro out, though, after all they'd been through and how Courtney fully got over him. Like, that was good. I feel like we did get to see a bit of a humbling for Alejandro this season. And Alejandro is an entertaining contestant to watch. I just don't like to see him be so successful. I don't. I want to see him fail more. And the new voice, terrible. Not good. World Tour voice is miles better. It was very noticeable. It sticks out to you a lot. The voice is a lot more whiny. A lot. Now, I will say, pre-merge, his little pretending to be paralyzed act, it was entertaining. It was so stupid, but I don't know, it was kind of annoying too. That's how I feel about Alejandro. Entertaining, but annoying. And that sums it up. I don't want to move on to the next character, but it's time to talk about Courtney. You know I love Courtney. I think up to her elimination episode, she was the highlight of the season. So Courtney started out as a hero. I know that's a controversial choice for a lot of people. Made total sense to me. I never have once questioned it. She's coming on this season with Gwen and Duncan. She left World Tour as the most wronged character of them all. Like, sure, she was a villain in action, but looking at it now, you have to imagine in the world of Total Drama, Courtney is a very sympathetic figure after seeing what Gwen and Duncan did in World Tour. Of course, the viewers would view Courtney as a hero. She's the sympathetic underdog coming into this season. I also think the heroes needed a little bit of spice, and Courtney definitely provided that, because if Courtney wasn't there, there would have been no drama on that team, and it's called Total Drama. I don't know about you, but I don't want to see Team Friendship, Team Sunshine and Rainbows. Like, right off the bat in episode 1, we get a rehash of her feud with Lindsay, which I so enjoy. I think the dynamic between those two is effortlessly entertaining, and I wish it would have lasted for a few more episodes, quite frankly. Whatever. But we have Courtney eventually getting switched to the villains team. Oh, plot twist. I very much enjoyed seeing Courtney move over to the villains team because she has Gwen over there. How is she going to deal with Gwen? Her and Gwen back on the same team. She's back on the same team with Heather too. So it's like, oh, we're really revisiting Team Amazon. Greatness here. I think the best arc of this season was definitely Courtney and Gwen making up and becoming friends again. It took a while to get there, but they do get there, and then they have a lot of really sweet moments. I absolutely have always been on the side of wanting to see those two romantically linked. The chemistry is there. I've never been a Gwen fan, really, but you can't deny it when you see the chemistry these two have. Like, they just get along well. Unlike Courtney paired with Scott, of all people. Ew, she can do much better than that. Ugh. But hey, even seeing her with Scott, I'm like, okay, look at Courtney being one of the only people here blending the lines between classic and Revenge of the Island. Like, we gotta have some intermingling, and I think Courtney provided a good lot of that. She was very much main character this season. And even closer to her boot episode, we get to see her kind of clashing with Zoe a little bit. And I thought that was a very interesting rivalry they were setting up. Now, did I have some like small problems here and there, like with the Cameron kiss and with Scott just being too much? Yeah, I did. Everything came to a head in the worst episode of all Total Drama, Sunday Muddy Sunday. I'm not alone in that opinion. That is the infamous episode. Everybody involved in making that should be ashamed. I remember watching this episode live. It just felt unreal. It really, as a kid, I just sat there in disbelief at what was unfolding before my eyes. I was convinced Courtney was gonna win because, okay, we obviously have to have a classic and a Revenge of the Island character in the finale. And of course, they're not going to do a duplicate winner. So as soon as Lindsay got booted, I was like, okay, Courtney's going to be here for a while because those two were the only non-finalists who were brought back from classic seasons. So to see how they derailed Courtney in this episode, I mean, right off the bat, we're getting a line about how this is the furthest she's ever made it. You made it to 4th place, Courtney. You're at 5th place right now. It was baffling too because All Stars, for all of its flaws, it was pulling a lot of references from past seasons that felt like, oh, you really know what you're doing. Like, you really pulled these references and studied the past seasons to make sure and honor Total Drama past in this All Star season. So we get a reference like that, and then we have Courtney's downfall being an eating challenge when she is known to be a strong eater. This stuff just doesn't add up. It makes no sense. This is not Courtney. These traits are not Courtney traits. She makes this stupid list with these stupid drawings that gets everybody all riled up. Sue her! Like, she was playing the game. Everybody's playing the game. They all got so worked up about it and just like wouldn't get over it. Even with Gwen, like, Gwen, you came back for Courtney. You don't want to work through this thing. It just seemed also dramatic, and it could have been interesting here to see Courtney kind of embrace her villainy again. But no, they just used it to like get Courtney out real quick. It completely undid the arc she was going on this season. It's so insulting. I feel like the vision's so clear up to this episode of what was like about to happen for the season. And it was so good what they were setting up. It was clear. I think they were setting up for this 5th placer to be Scott. Courtney votes out Scott to prove to Gwen that she's with Gwen. That would have been the conclusion of their arc. Then we get to the next episode. Gwen gets 4th place because of what Duncan did a few episodes prior. She's still getting taken out because of Duncan. Then Zoe wins the challenge, and she has to choose between Courtney and Mal. And instead of choosing Mal, she chooses Courtney and finally gets to have her moment of standing up to Mal after everything she'd been through that season. And then we get this rivalry that has been brewing. Courtney and Zoe facing off against each other. They don't like each other. These two people from different eras, they don't like each other, but they have like a respect for each other in some sense. And they're really going at it. And it would have been such an entertaining finale. And either one winning would have been satisfying because they both had great arcs and they were the main characters of the season. But no, they cut Courtney out and they leave her scraps to get booted in the next episode. And the finale is totally anticlimactic with this showmance from the second era facing off. Like, even if you're going to do an all-star season, you want classics in the finale. You need some classic representation in the finale. And that should have been Courtney. Like, I could brush off a lot of the wasted potential in this season, but this is like what really makes me mad. It's like they were so close. So close to greatness. A good finale would have redeemed every flaw of this season, but no, they managed to make the worst end game of them all here, all in one episode. And it's really sad to see a show I love so much do something so stupid. It just makes no sense. And honestly, it does scream misogyny. They didn't want the two girls in the finale. That's what it gives. They wanted a guy versus a girl. That's really what it seems like to me. But regardless of what happened in this episode, I will always love Courtney, and I appreciated her presence on this season for what it is. And I can kind of compartmentalize this last episode because it was so out of character, and enjoy the rest of the season and the great arc that she was on. And I can just be delusional in my head about it. But I just still think about when it first aired and how upset it did make me to see how things fell. It really did hurt my feelings back in the day. So with that, we move on to the final four, and this is easily the worst final four in total drama history. No contest, really. I can't think of a worse one if I tried. In fourth place, we have Gwen. And Gwen is not a character I've ever liked. She came onto this season lying to everybody. She gets placed on the villain's team. She's like, why am I a villain? And she spends this whole season screaming, Duncan wasn't Courtney's boyfriend at the time, when that's just a lie. They were never officially broken up. You stole Duncan. Don't try to make excuses for it. You need to just own it. That's my thing with Gwen. She never owns anything. She does these things and never stands on them. And she tries to act like she's better than everybody when you're not. You make mistakes. Gwen, own them. But Gwen says she came on the season for Courtney, and she spends the season trying to get back in Courtney's good graces. Eventually she does, and it's really sweet. It's really lovely. It's the highlight of the season. Even in that, I'm still side-eyeing Gwen a bit because she's not really standing on business, but I can't deny how amazing the scenes between her and Courtney are. Like, they just work together as characters. Don't get it twisted. Gwen still... No, you're not tricking me. Own your stuff. I'm not talking about Sunday Muddy Sunday anymore. I can't. I've said what I need to say on that episode. Gwen did stuff in that episode and it disappointed me, whatever. But then in the final four, I'm like, who do I have to root for here? Do I have to root for Mal? No. Do I have to root for Zoe? She won't get her head together and she's doing the dumbest stuff imaginable. I can't root for her. I'm not gonna root for Scott, ever. So, like, in this final four, I'm, like, left rooting for Gwen, and it's like, I don't want to. So I'm like, okay, you're kind of my only rooting interest here, I guess. So I'm like, okay, Team Gwen, I guess. Maybe she'll get an arc with Courtney in the finale. I don't know. But no, Gwen just gets fourth place. It's very lame. This could have been an email by Gwen. And she's bragging about how she was the last classic cast member too. And to get that lame exit as the last classic cast member. What a letdown. So yeah, honestly, this was probably my favorite season of Gwen's. Because I think it had her most compelling content in it. But it's still not a great season for Gwen. In third place, we have Scott. They bring Scott back, and he gets very much nerfed. He's not as villainous as he was. He's kind of reduced to comedic relief. It makes sense to me because he was able to fool a bunch of idiots, but he can't keep up with Heather Alejandro. Like, you're not on that same level. So I was fine with him being the comedic relief, but I just don't care. I did not care about Scott. So to see him be one of these people in the end game, it's like, why? Like, okay, you were a little funny, but you could have been like a mid-merge boot and everything would have been fine. But no, he got third place. It makes no sense. Why? What did Scott do to deserve such a strong appearance in All Stars? No, I already said I don't like his coupling with Courtney. For what it was interesting, but like, and I guess it was good for Scott's character to be attached to her. It wasn't as good for Courtney to be attached to him. And I'm not talking about Sunday Monday Setting again, but I have opinions on the stuff Scott did there, but I just can't reopen that. I get too upset. Like, I should have more to say on somebody who came in third place, but I just don't. That's sad. So I'll move on to the finalist. I'll discuss Zoe first. I liked Zoe in Revenge of the Island. I thought she was a nice girl, and I thought she proved that she could hold her own pretty well. Then we get to All Stars, and she still has these moments here and there where I'm like, okay, I like you, Zoe. Like, particularly her friendship with Gwen and her little rivalry with Courtney. Those were very interesting, and seeing her kind of being a girl's girl. But Zoe literally put her life at risk to try to prove that Mike is still Mike when Mike wasn't Mike. Anybody would save you if you were dying, because if they didn't, it would look suspicious and their cover would be blown. So she just did that for no reason. It's like, it's just, I can't even dwell on that for too long, because it's so sad. Like, really, Zoe? And Zoe just never really catches on, or never cares enough that Mike is Mal, and she's just there, sad about it. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Why? Is this what we wanted to see from All Stars? Is this what we wanted to see from Zoe? And then to see Zoe take Mike to the finale, despite knowing that he's Mal now, and to see Zoe win out in the end. She's a winner of Total Drama, despite having the worst season imaginable and being so clueless and so dumb. Like, all for the sake of this guy. Are the Mike and Zoe shippers happy with this season? Are you? Speak out. Are you? Is this what you wanted? It's so disappointing. It's so sad. I wish Zoe won on Revenge of the Island instead of this, if she was going to win a season. I just hate this. I hate this for Zoe. I really hate this for Zoe. And I just can't look fondly on her after seeing this season. I think just, it's so sad what's become of Zoe here. I've saved the best for last, apparently, because now I'm moving on to Mike, or should I say Mal. I said in the past, I think Mike's an offensive character, doesn't need to exist. I didn't want him on All Stars. I'm not shocked he's on All Stars, because him and Zoe were like the couple of Revenge of the Island. Of course, they're going to bring them both back. Whatever, I don't want that. I did not want that. Leave Mike out of the season, but they brought him back anyway. Fine. He's here. So if he's going to be here, let's at least do something interesting with him. But not this. Not this Mal stuff. Mal does not need to exist. How much do I want to talk about this? I don't want to talk about it at all, but I have to talk about it a little bit, because it's the big storyline of the season. Mal is this supervillain persona Mike has. For much of the season, we're hopping into Mike's mind. We're literally going into Mike's brain and watching Mike and his personalities fight their way out to come defeat Mal. This is when you know the show has jumped the shark. We are going into the brain of somebody on a parody of a reality show. We are hopping into the brain of somebody to watch them fight their supervillain persona that's taken over their mind. Consider the shark jumped. They might as well jump the Loch Ness Monster. Like, who thought of this? Who thought this was a good... Who signed off on this? Why did people sign off on it? Why was this approved? How was this allowed? This is one of the most idiotic storylines I've ever heard. And somehow it's what was the biggest storyline of Total Drama All-Stars. One of the biggest cartoons at the time. It's absurd. How is this a thing? It's so insulting to the DID community that this is a thing. And once you get past that and just take it for what it is, even then, Mal's not a good villain. He does these stupid little pranks that nothing ever comes from. Like breaking Sierra's phone. Rigging the votes, but then the person doesn't go home anyway. Leaving Cameron get injured and he goes out that way. He didn't even go out and vote. Failing to sabotage stuff. Never really getting caught. This isn't even a good villain once you remove how offensive and insulting it is that the character exists in the first place. Like, you didn't do anything good with this. And then this finale is Mike finally defeating Mal. And then he gets rewarded for not being on the season at all. In his winning ending. Gets the money. Despite not being present in the season. For defeating his own mind. It's so bad. What else is there to say? Mike is the worst character in Total Drama history. Hands down. Like, words can't describe how bad this is. I consider myself a wordsmith and I cannot find the appropriate words to say how bad this is. And that's Total Drama All-Stars for you. What a season. Objectively, I'd definitely say this is a worse season than Revenge of the Island. But I think I'd rather watch this season than watch Revenge of the Island. Because at least if I watch this season, I can see the classic characters that I love and get a little dose of them. And I don't think Revenge of the Island is that much better than this season. Like, I think a lot of the flaws here still exist in Revenge of the Island. It's just taken to an extreme here. And then a lot of the characters ruined in All-Stars are set up in Revenge of the Island. So, like, why would I get invested in them if they're just going to be destroyed anyway? I think this season tanks Revenge of the Island a bit more in the process of trying to prop them up. So yeah, I think I'd still probably rank Revenge of the Islands lower than this season just because I like the classic characters better and they're at least here. They don't have great appearances, but at least they're here. I enjoy seeing them in any capacity I can see them, so what can I say? But yeah, this is such a disappointing season. It should have been epic, but it is really lame and it's really upsetting. And now I have to mention in the finale, they have the characters float up into bubbles, and that's the last time we see a lot of these characters. And I remember how upset that had me as a kid. I thought all my favorite characters died. We know that's not the case. I'm sure the bubbles popped and they fell into the water. But to leave it there, to leave it in that spot, very sad. This season makes me sad. This is what we did. Okay. It's really upsetting. I would love to see another All-Star season and for them to finally get it right. Let's do it justice. We got more characters to work with. I would very much like to see it. I know it's scary to say that after how poorly things went here, but come on. Everybody could go for some redemption, and any excuse to see my classic characters, I'll at least enjoy it a little bit. So I will definitely be back to watch Pac-2 Island. I know that's a lot of people's least favorite season, but I've always enjoyed it. We'll see if I still feel that way after another rewatch. So stay tuned until next time. Bye.